Hey guys, it's Bill Vincey from No Time for Nonsense. Welcome back to our show. It's Sunday. That means we got another great show going for you today. We have special guest Victor Rojas, TV announcer. Victor Rojas from the Los Angeles Angels. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for joining us today, man. We really appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us for a little bit today.
Oh, my pleasure.
That's awesome. Guys, if you're just joining us, I want to thank a couple of sponsors of today's show. These guys sponsor all our shows for the month here. I want to thank Geddes Bakery in Syracuse, New York, the Pappas family. Fantastic place. They got all your homemade goods, pastries, cakes, breads, and some of the best cookies and stuff around, and a fantastic family. Definitely check them out in Syracuse, New York. They are at, you can reach them at 315-437-8084. And also want to thank Joey's at 307 in Utica, New York, and Matt Grabsky, some of the freshest and incredible food you're going to get anywhere in the area. Matt has specials every weekend. You can't beat his franchise, his Marcella, and he's got some of the best fish going at the Out of the Way Cafe. And if you want to give him a call, put your order in. He's at 315-733-5060. So thank you guys so much for sponsoring today's show. So guys, we are with Victor Rojas. If you have any questions for him, you can send a message on the page and I'll relay the message to him and we can find out a little bit about him. But Victor, I want to thank you again for coming on the show, man. And I want to get started right away. You were born down in Miami, Florida?
Yeah.
Tell us about growing up in Miami.
Well, I was only there a couple of years. It just so happened that's where we were living in the off season. And I grew up in Kansas City.
Okay.
My dad was playing with the Royals at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so of the four boys, three of us were born in Miami. One was born in Willingboro, New Jersey. And but the bulk of our adolescence was pretty much in Kansas City and Overland Park on the Kansas side.
Okay. Now, growing up, obviously your dad, Cookie Rojas, was a major league ball player, managed for a couple of years. How was it, growing up with a father who played in the majors?
I mean, it was cool. I didn't know a whole lot about it. Didn't really realize it as a young person. I was in fifth grade when he retired in 1977. Mm-hmm. So from his playing career, I don't remember a whole lot there. I mean, there's some memories, especially from the playoffs in 75, 76, and 77.
Sure.
But other than that, the bulk of my memory of my dad to this day has been from the coaching side, because he went right to the Chicago Cubs and became a coach with them in 78. And he was there till 82. And then he became an Angels advanced scout. And he spent 10 seasons there. And then, which included a season as a manager. And then he went to the Florida Marlins at that time. So, I mean, it was cool. The first glimpse or the first inkling that I had of my dad being, I knew he had a cool job and everything. His job was at a ballpark, but I never had, from a fame perspective, had no idea. But I remember my fifth grade teacher, Mrs. Sheets, was reading a book called Unsung Heroes. And there's a chapter in there about my dad. And she didn't preface the reading with anything other than I'd like to just read this chapter.
Right.
And she started reading about my dad, and I thought that was the coolest thing in the world.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And that's when it first dawned on me, that my dad does something that's well known and not just to our family.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you played a little baseball growing up.
Yeah.
And you played a little high school, but then you pitched. Were you in the minor league system?
Yeah.
Who'd you play for?
I played college baseball. I played a couple of different places in college.
Okay.
Primarily College of the Desert, and then I went to Lewis and Clark State up in Idaho. It's an NAIA school, and then I signed with the Angels organization and pitched in their minor league system for a season. Was going to go back, but got married. My wife got pregnant at the time, and priorities kind of dictated I take a different path, and that's kind of why I went into a different direction until 93, and then I became a member of the Florida Marlins inaugural season staff. Went back as a minor league pitching coach and player in 94 in independent ball in South Texas, and then that was pretty much it. And then I got into the real world.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, I know. Well, when you joined that Marlins team in '93, you were even was the bullpen catcher too.
Yeah, that was my gig, and it's kind of cool, being a part of that whole inaugural season. I had gone to the winter meetings. They were in Nashville in '92. My dad was already a member of the organization. I don't believe he had already been named as the third base coach, but he was part of the organization with Dave Dombrowski and the like, and Wayne Huizenga. And so I went to the winter meetings looking for a job in baseball and trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And it was my idea to maybe seek out the position of bullpen catcher for the Marlins. I knew Marcel Latchman was going to be the pitching coach. I knew Marcel. Frank Rehberger was going to be the bullpen coach, and Frank Rehberger was my minor league pitching coordinator with the Angels. Okay. So I figured, all right, I got a couple of guys that I know there. Might as well check it out. And I ended up running it up the flagpole to Dave Dombrowski, and lo and behold, I got the gig. And it was fun. It was exciting. It was cool watching a team kind of being put together from expansion draft and all that. And it was cool, to bring baseball to South Florida, and especially to the Latin American community down there, which my dad's been a part of for a long time. It was kind of a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, your first, when you got into announcing, you were a TV radio announcer for the Newark Bears?
I was a radio announcer. They didn't do TV there. But, I had, at 33 years of age, I decided that I wanted to try this broadcasting thing and kind of transition away from being in the front office of I had worked in. What didn't I work in? I mean, arena football. I'd worked in minor league baseball. I'd worked for the Florida Panthers National Hockey League team. I'd worked at the arena where the Panthers play. But I wasn't really fulfilled, and so I wanted to try something new. And so I thought I would put my feelers out there for trying to get a gig in independent ball as a player still. And then on my downtime, go to the radio station and try to kind of learn the business. And Rick Cerrone, the former Yankee catcher, owned the Bears at the time. And I sent him a resume through a friend of mine who was the third base coach. And Rick called me and said, I don't want you as a player, but I'd like for you to come up here and maybe be the assistant GM. You could put the team together since it's independent ball. You have to sign your players on a yearly basis. And you could do some color on the broadcasts. We did our games on the Seton Hall radio station. And so I went up there and I did that. The first month I was there, or probably actually 2 months after I got there, spring training in baseball was underway. And then Canseco got released, and Jose Canseco. We had Ozzie Canseco on our roster already from the previous year. But I got a call from Jose, and he wanted to come and play with his brother in Newark. And that's how that whole thing kind of blew up with Canseco and Jim Leyritz. I had already signed Jack Armstrong and Jamie Navarro.
Oh, yeah.
And so we all ended up with all these big league guys in Newark.
Wow.
And it was cool. It was a good experience. It was fun, hectic, insane at times. But it was a good learning experience, especially from a radio broadcast perspective, because I kind of had to learn on the fly.
That's what I was going to ask you. You didn't go to school for any broadcast radio. This is something you just kind of learned as you went.
Yeah, I mean, I guess having grown up in the game and listening to my dad's games, I kind of had an idea of what a broadcast should sound like from a baseball perspective.
Right.
But the nuts and bolts of it, the technical aspect, back then, we had a Comrex, and you had to dial in, and learning all that kind of stuff. It's not that complicated, but
right.
Not knowing that you need a code to dial, have a number to dial out, and all that crap. It was a little crazy and hectic. Like I said, that especially that first game. Our first game was in Nashua, New Hampshire, against the Nashua Pride. Butch Hobson was the manager of the Pride, and it was my first wedding anniversary. I got remarried. It was our first wedding anniversary. I've got media, including ESPN, going crazy on the field because Canseco and all those guys are there. And I'm trying to figure out how to dial out so I can get on the air and try to broadcast the game. So it was something I'll never forget. And I'm glad at least my wife was there to kind of experience it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
After that, you went to broadcast for MLB Radio, 2002, 2003. How was that? That had to be pretty exciting.
It was
That's a big
cool.
jump.
MLB.com at the time, it's not what it is today.
Right.
MLB.TV, it's evolved. And so being on the ground floor of, their first programming was kind of cool. I had a show with Jonathan Mayo, who's still a draft expert for .com and for MLB Network.
Okay.
We had a morning show called The Baseball Breakfast for 2 years. And it was pretty exciting. It started in the fall of 2001 and we went into 2003. And but getting to learn, kind of that side of the business, the technical side, the web side was unique.
Right.
I remember, now the highlights, the cut fours and all that stuff that they're capable of doing is so far advanced compared to what we were doing. I mean, we were recording in little offices. I remember doing the 2002 World Series recap video when the Angels won in the lobby of MLB.com, and just sitting on a ledge, videotaping with a little video camera, and then trying to edit that stuff. So it was a great experience, having been able to do that. I wish I would have paid more attention to, editing and filming and stuff like that at that time, because that was on the ground floor, and being able to learn it and be a part of it was certainly something that inspired me even more so to kind of pursue the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And after MLB, you went to Arizona, did some radio. You went to Texas for a little bit, and then MLB Network. You debuted with the what were you, a host of the Hot Stove?
Yeah, I was. So I was doing radio for the Rangers, and the season had come to an end. I had interviewed with the Chicago White Sox for a radio position, and I had gone out to San Diego to talk about their TV job that had become available because Matt Vasgersian was hired by MLB Network. Mm-hmm. And I got a call from Tony Petitti and John Entz at the network that they wanted me to come up to New Jersey and have a kind of like a screen test type deal. And we did it right there in Secaucus with Harold Reynolds. And I knew that by the time I was headed back to the airport, Newark airport, that I was going to get offered a job. And so I thought, okay, here comes my new opportunity to go from being a radio guy to TV. I'd never really done TV on a full-time basis, especially from a studio host perspective. Zero experience in that.
Right.
I knew I knew it was going to be a big deal, and it was good for me as far as my career. And I ended up, taking it. And then I find out, a couple of weeks before launch that Matt Vasgersian had, I believe, a Fiesta Bowl commitment with Fox. So he was calling that game and wasn't going to be there for the January 1st launch. And so that they wanted me to do it. And so, it was like being thrown into the deep end of the pool and not knowing how to swim.
Yeah.
So you have two choices, right? You sink to the bottom and you die, or you paddle like crazy and try to survive. And that's what I did. And it was cool. Sitting at the desk, we had taped the show beforehand, before we launched, just because they were worried about the satellite dishes and all that stuff, and making sure the signal goes out. But it was really cool. We sat in our positions at the desk, even though the show was on tape, just in case something happened, so that we could pick it up from right there.
Right.
And, sitting there and watching the countdown, and then Bud Selig comes on the air and welcomes everybody. And then the next scene is me standing in front of the desk welcoming everybody to MLB Network. It's just something I'll never forget, and one of the most incredible experiences that I've ever had. I
was going to say, geez, Victor, I mean, you went right up the ladder, just like, and that's amazing. I mean, MLB Network obviously is the, besides ESPN, MLB Network, and to be honest, MLB Network is by far the best network to watch all your baseball and get all your scores and everything else. I mean, so informative, and that's got to be really cool for what you did.
No, it was. And being, just like I said, like learning all the different things. It was a little bit hard for me, I think, early on, because I didn't know what the expectations were, and expectations of the business. I didn't know what the expectations of me were. And so you kind of go into it thinking one thing, and then all of a sudden reality hits and the business kind of dictates other things. And, you know, when you're learning on the fly, it's a tough pill to swallow. But I think I'm better off
right,
because of it. You learn and you gain the experience. And when that situation comes up again, you know how to kind of handle it.
absolutely. Guys, if you're just joining us, we're with Victor Rojas, Los Angeles Angels announcer. If you have any questions for him, send them to us, and I'll read them off to him, and we'll get some good answers for you. So Victor, after MLB now is when you got your big gig with the Angels. Tell us a little bit about that and how you got that.
Well, I mean, had it not been for the unfortunate passing of Rory Marcus, I guess I'd still be at MLB Network. We had so I had signed. Most of us had signed 1-year deals with options at MLB Network because it was a launch. Nobody knew what the expectation was, and we were all kind of new going into it. And I knew that I liked it there, and so we had already engaged the network about extending the contract, and they were willing to do that as well. And Rory Marcus passed away in January of 2010. I believe it was a brain aneurysm, and so it was sudden. And 2010 was supposed to be his first year full-time on TV with Mark Gubas. So they had made the determination in the November beforehand. And, I was just doing my thing at the network, rolling along. And we had heard rumors that the Angels were going to bring in somebody from one of the Fox affiliates and just kind of be a Band-Aid approach, just cover the year. Right. And then at the end of 2010 that they would go into a full-time search. That's what we had heard at the network. And so I didn't think twice about it. I think at one point in my career when I was with the Rangers, I talked to Tim Mead and said, yeah, I mean, if anything ever happens with the Angels, I'd like to be considered. I mean, my daughter lives out there. My oldest lives out there. I grew up with that organization with my dad working there.
Right.
But that's when I was a radio guy trying to make the move over to TV. Now I was a TV guy at a network, national network. And so I really didn't have any desires to move anywhere, even though it was a pretty good gig.
Right.
And I just remember we were doing our nightly shows, and the next day I had to be in at the studio about 3:00. And I usually took a nap about mid-morning just to I'm an early riser to begin with. And right before I shut it down, I got a phone call I see the phone call from Tim Mead. And I look at my wife and I'm like, what did I say last night about the Angels? I thought I was getting, reprimand or, Timmy was getting grief. And I'd known Tim for a long time. And so I answered the call and he asked me, if I had any interest in the job. And I said, not really, because, it'd be cool, but I thought you guys were going in a different direction. And he said, well, Artie Moreno would like to meet with you if you're interested in talking about it. And I'm like, okay. So, if the owner of the team wants to talk to you, you go out and talk to him. So we went out to Arizona and met with the team. And I flew out there on a Thursday. I met with the team on a Friday. By Saturday afternoon, we had already locked up a deal, a 5-year deal. And by Monday morning, I was back in Secaucus and breaking the news to MLB Network. And then 2 days later was my last show. I told them that I could hang out and help them out with the spring training stuff. But they said, no, Wednesday's your last day. And that was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
We got a couple questions for you. Did you get to work with Dan Plesac at the MLB Network?
Yeah. Sac's the best. He's one of the first, he was there with me from the get-go. The first show was with Harold, Al Latter, and Barry Larkin. That was the inaugural show. Hazel May was there and Trini Kusnierek as well. But Sac was part of the initial group, and he was so easy to work with. The way he is on air is the way he is off air, and just a really genuinely kind individual and likes to have fun, really smart. He's one of those guys that knows when to lock it in when he needs to lock it in and be serious.
Yep.
But really keeps things very, very loose, much like Sean Casey does as well.
I was going to say that's a great group when you look at it with Larkin and Reynolds and Leiter.
Yeah,
like a bunch of characters too, especially Leiter.
Yeah. And the cool thing about it was three completely different personalities, right? I've never, and I've said this to Harold before, I don't consider Harold an analyst. I think Harold's an entertainer that breaks things down. I think his job is to entertain while doing, some analysis, but it's not really this hardcore breakdown.
Right.
Al Leiter's more of this focused, really fast talking individual who's locked in all the time.
And that's how he pitched too.
And what's that?
And that's how he pitched.
Yeah, and that's how he was, exactly. And then Barry's more of the kind of reserved. He likes to listen and so it was kind of a cool dynamic to work with those three guys on the inaugural show. And and periodically we would all get together, but it was mostly a 3-person desk is what they ran with. And so you had combination of guys coming in and out. And during that first year, Kevin Millar got released. So Kevin Millar came and did some screen tests with us. He sat in, did some shows with us. Jimmy Rollins sat in with us. Tony Clark, who's now the head of the Players Association. Yeah. He was there and we did some shows with him. So it was pretty cool seeing the different personalities coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. We got another question from Bob Taylor. Did you get to watch Nick Edenhart pitch?
No, unfortunately, no. And I had, because I was at the network, I had heard great things about him in spring training. He had a tremendous spring. What I do remember is, I take that back. I did see him the spring before, but he wasn't quite there yet. Right. And he had a really impressive spring training in 2009, and but didn't get a shot. And so we knew of him, but the unfortunate passing and getting killed by a drunk driver. I'll never forget the day that I got that call, because I had to go into the studio and break that news on MLB Network. And that was one of the hardest things I had ever done to date, and I remember Harold was in there with me as well and talking about that and sharing the story about how Nick's dad, because he just pitched the night before and pitched brilliantly I think it was against the Oakland A's, how that following day, how his dad apparently was just sitting in front of his locker. And I can't imagine what that was like. But, being on air and sharing those type of stories and talking about them was just incredible. But I didn't get a chance to see him at the major league level, no.
Okay. All right. Now, one of your big calls, and this is funny, I actually got to see a video of the broadcast booth when you called the big number 600. I watched a video of you in the booth, and it was great. How was that call to call number 600?
It was cool. You're talking about Albert Pujols' 600th home run, and it was against the Minnesota Twins, and it was, I believe, a 4-game series. So Albert hit number 599, I believe, on Monday. And so I had this idea. This wasn't a thing that the network decided to do, to have a camera in our booth. I just had this idea. I think it'd be kind of cool. I'd called Sammy Sosa's 600th. I had already called Albert's 500th when we were in D.C. I'm thinking, maybe our stage manager can just film our booth, and whatever happens, happens, right? Yeah, so we went at bat after at bat, Monday, Tuesday, record, delete, because he wasn't doing it. Right. Then he comes up against Irvin Santana, the former Angel, bases loaded situation, and he hits a grand slam, but he pulls it down the line. And that's why if you watch the video, it's well struck. Right. Game off the field. I don't watch a game off a monitor. And so when you see it, you just know there's a sound, there's the trajectory of the baseball. And so I knew it was hit well. Then it becomes a question of, is it fair or foul? And that's why you see us, we both kind of leaning, trying to see the ball. And so it was kind of cool, a grand slam for number 600, and he did it at home against a former Angel pitcher. It's just a fairly dramatic thing. And it was, I believe, a pretty long at bat. He had some foul balls and stuff like that. So it was, the video was cool that we got it.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. I got some fun questions for you. I kind of want to ask you. What is your favorite stadium to announce in?
Well, our stadium's not bad because to me, it's all about location, and being low and close to the field is always great.
Right.
But now with all the newer ballparks, you're getting pushed back and higher. But ours is still a really good location behind home plate, and it's fairly low. Kansas City is still fairly low and behind the plate, and fairly close. Fenway Park's kind of cool because you actually have to lean forward to look down to the batter's box. You're almost right above home plate area there. But those three are the ones that stand out to me as far as, all right, the closeness to the facility. Now, my favorite ballpark, I think, is PNC in Pittsburgh, just because of the view. I think the stadium's beautiful, the river, the Roberto Clemente Bridge, everything about it's just amazing. It's one of the worst broadcast positions because you're on the moon. DC is the same way. But for the most part, there aren't any bad ballparks. I'm not a huge fan of Oakland's broadcast booth. It's just old. It's brutal. It's got old carpet from like the 1980s on the desk. It's kind of disgusting, but our one of our audio guys, our A2 there in Oakland, not ours, but he works a lot of the visiting teams. He went out and built last year a shelf that goes on top of the carpet. So it was great. We got this new desk on top of the old carpet, so you felt at least a little bit more sanitary,
right,
than we had in years past. But for the most part, I can't think of a ballpark where you go into going like, like old Yankee Stadium was one of those, because it was the size of our screen. It was like it was two guys. You're tight. There's no room to move. Those were bad booths. But now they're super spacious.
Right. Who are some of the announcers you've worked with over the years?
I mean, I'm with Mark Gubiza. I've had a chance to work with, as far as big name guys, I've worked with Chris Myers, who works for Fox Sports. Great dude. Bill McDonald calls the Lakers now. I had a chance to work with Billy Mack. But just the standard guys. I worked with Eric Burns. I did a couple of Fox games with Eric. I've done games with Dan Plesac. I worked with Mitch Williams. But it's been pretty much my broadcast partners throughout. I was fortunate with Eric Nadel, who's a Hall of Fame broadcaster with the Rangers. And then Mark Gubiza, the former Royals pitcher, has been my partner for 10 years. And we're kind of like stepbrothers.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the hardest part about preparing for a game? A lot of people want to know this because there's got to be a lot of work involved in prepping up for a game.
Yeah, it can be tedious, and I guess it all goes back to how much you not prepare for a game, but how much information you want to write down for a game. I'm of the belief, and I found this out years ago when I was doing radio with the Rangers, that I don't work my best when I have too much information in my book, because I become more focused on the information that I'm trying to get everything in, as opposed to focusing what's happening on the field. And so I came to that realization my first year working with the Rangers. It works for Eric Nadel. It just doesn't work for me. So prep really is just kind of getting up to speed. And once you're in a season, early on when you're facing teams the first time, even though you may know them, especially within your own league, the American League for me, the first time around, it's about just refreshing yourself. But when you play in your division, each team 19 times, you kind of know everybody. You kind of know the stories. You kind of know the new information that's out there. There's more prep put in, for me anyway, when you interleague action, because you're not facing it's once every 3 years as you rotate through the divisions, and things change quite a bit and dramatically. I don't really pay attention a whole lot to the National League other than when we're playing them or getting ready to play them. We play the Dodgers every year, home and home series, so we know them pretty well. But all the other teams you kind of have to kind of keep up on. But it's one of those before this year, I'm at the ballpark by about 3:30. I do a lot. Like I said, I'm an early riser. I do my reading early. So when I get to the ballpark, I like to get my book done And so I don't have to deal with that. And then I could just, I don't like being late or cramming stuff at the last minute.
Right.
So I'd like being paced well. And so that when we're done pre-recording stuff, like at 5:40 for a 7:00 game, I have like an hour and 15 minutes to whatever else I need to do to get caught up or make a phone call or see somebody. I'm on my own time, and I'm done and ready for first pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. We got another question for you. Who do you think are some of the best play-by-play guys, and have you ever met Michael Kay?
Yeah, I know Michael. Michael's a great dude. He's funny. We screw with him quite a bit, and every time we come to the first time we come to New York, before the first game, we just sit in our booth and start yelling "See ya," just to see how long it takes him to either peek around the booth or come into our booth and give us garbage. So he's a really good dude. He's an interesting character, man, and he's always been really kind and really giving of his time to me, anyway. And so it's always good to see him. Favorite announcers. I don't really get a chance to watch a whole lot of stuff because I just don't have the time. Sometimes I catch it if it's on TV, day game that's on the tube or whatever. But I will tell you that I really enjoyed when my dad was with the Mets as a coach. I was working in Newark at the time, and Gary Cohen was working radio, if I remember correctly. And I just love listening to Gary. He just great pipes and his pacing for the game and lets the game breathe. Right. And, and being in a booth with two guys now on TV, just the prototypical professional and being able to be the bus driver and handling the traffic of getting the stuff your producer wants you to get in, and then still getting the important nuggets from Keith Hernandez and Ron Darling. It's not the easiest thing in the world to work not those guys, but working a 3-man booth is not the easiest thing in the world. You know? Yeah. And so I think he's one of those guys that has always stood out to me as like, he's pretty darn good at what he does. Right. Look, there's only 30 of these jobs. I think you have to be somewhat talented or have some sort of ability to call it. So I think everyone's talented in their own right, but just like anything else, like I don't like every single flavor at Baskin Robbins. There's certain flavors that I really, really like. Right. It's a subjective business. You like a certain style of broadcaster. I may like a certain style of broadcaster, and I get it. Yeah, absolutely. Who was your favorite baseball team growing up? The Royals. Growing up. I grew up in Kansas City. Dad played there. It was fun watching him go to the World Series in '80, even though my dad was already gone. And then '85, getting a chance to watch them win it was pretty cool. My allegiance tended to go where my dad went at that, because by '82 I was a freshman in high school, and while it was cool being at Wrigley Field for those 4 years when he was there, I was a Cubs fan, but I wasn't like in love with the Cubs. I just thought it was cool being there and being a bat boy. Right. In '82, as I got older and he became a member of the Angels organization, that's the year they went to the playoffs. They won the first 2 games against the Brewers and then lost 3 in a row in Milwaukee. And I was there and I cried my eyes out. And that's when I became, an Angels fan. And then '86, the Red Sox beating the Angels, the Donnie Moore game and Dave Henderson with a home run. And so that was a crusher there. So that's kind of been my team. And Dad spent 10 years there. He managed the Angels in '88. I was with him that summer. So I kind of transitioned from the Royals to the Angels, but I still, even if I weren't an Angels employee, I'd still be an Angels fan, deep down. But Royals for me is always going to be like, that's at my core. Yeah. I'm a Chiefs fan. I'm a Kansas Jayhawks fan. That's where I grew up. That's where you grew up. See, I was watching George Brett play. Had to be. It was cool. I loved watching. Cool. And he came up at such a, at an early age. And I think it was 74, 75, right around 74. I think it was when he first got there. We were kids and he was this kid in this clubhouse. And he was just the coolest dude, He was just like the long blonde hair California guy and just kind of chill. And you didn't see a whole lot of that in Kansas City in the Midwest, Right. And then on top of that, he was so damn good, And so it was really cool. And he didn't have any kids, wasn't married at the time, but he had nephews. And I remember Kimmer Brett was there quite a bit and visited him. And, we had a pretty close relationship. The kids, players back then, they were older. And so the kids were, also older. Today's game, there's so many young players. So the kids in the clubhouse are babies or 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-olds. I've watched Albert Pujols' kid kind of grow up from being a 12-year-old kid initially, and all of a sudden he's in college all of a sudden. Right. So that's kind of a mind blow. But we as kids in the Royals organization, Brian McRae, who became a major leaguer.
Oh yeah.
EMAC was playing tape ball with us. Jenny Splittorff, Paul Splittorff's kid, Marty Patton's kids, all these names. All we did was we were on the field for BP, and then we'd go to the family room and play tape ball during the games. That's
right.
Every single day. And so it was a nice little group, and we were all kind of in the same age group.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, question I got, I'm a huge foodie. I actually do a food show as our full-time job. I travel all over New York State showcasing restaurants. That's kind of like a diners, drive-ins, and dives type of show. So what is the best city that has the best food when you're traveling? What would you say? Where's got some of the best restaurants when you go to a town? What's
all right? So I'm gonna phrase it this way. So I'm gonna tell you a place that I look forward to going to because of a restaurant.
Okay.
Toronto stands out.
Okay.
There's a place called Soto, which is an Italian restaurant. Awesome. I mean, just Mama's there and she's in the kitchen and and everyone goes there. If you're the Toronto Film Festival's in town, Nero's there. Everyone goes there. It's just one of those type of places. And it's not pretentious or anything. It's just a small little place, but the food is unbelievable. So when we go to Toronto, it's like, I can't wait to go to Soto.
There you go. Yeah.
That's how I look at it, because I like food, but I'm also a creature of habit. So it's like, I know that when I go to New York, I want to go to Del Frisco's right there, or whatever it is, across from the Fox building. That Del Frisco's is the only one I want to go to. You know what I mean? It's
right.
And I want to sit on the window and I want to see people walking by and have a steak. Those are the little things that I like to do. So there's no one particular place, because I can find
places.
One place, Beggar's Pizza in Chicago. Yeah. To me, that's for deep dish. I like Beggar's. That's how I look at it.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Every place has unique food.
Right. Who are some of the players you like to watch today in the majors?
Well, I'm lucky that I get to watch Mike Trout on a daily basis. I mean, if the team's going bad, that Trout's going to come up 4 times and might do something spectacular defensively. So I'm really lucky in that regard. And now on top of that, I get to watch the tail end of Albert Pujols' career and reaching milestones, 500, 600, 3,000 hits, 2,000 RBIs. Had this season not been, suspended, an outside chance at 700 home runs. I mean, that's really cool. And then Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
So I'm really lucky that we're in my position that I get to see those 3 unbelievable talented guys, on top of Andrelton Simmons, who can pick it with the best of them.
Oh, yeah.
There's this kid named Joe Adell, who's a highly touted prospect that everyone can't wait to see at the major league. So we're thrilled. But I mean, there is so much talent across the board, young talent, I mean, it's ridiculous how much talent there is. And every team's got someone that's special. I mean, the Yankees obviously have, it starts with Aaron Judge. Christian Yelich of the Milwaukee Brewers has come into his own and superstar to Milwaukee. I can go on and on and on. Joey Gallo is starting to kind of figure it out with the Texas Rangers. Not a big name, but prodigious power, started to walk a little bit more, cut down his strikeouts, more selective. I just think that this is, as far as the game is concerned, and my dad will agree, I don't think there's ever really been, and it's going to continue this way, this great of a collection of young talent at any one time. And it just seems like, boom, there's Ronald Acuna. I remember being at the network, like when Cooch got to the big leagues with the Pittsburgh Pirates, Andrew McCutcheon's like, oh my God, here's this guy who's like this 5-tool type of player. And you're looking at him like, wow. And then Trout gets there and it becomes, so he raises the bar to a different level. And it's like, now people in the minor leagues are like, Ronald Acuna, he's the next Mike Trout. boom, there's Ronald Acuna doing crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So I just think it's amazing time for baseball as far as young talent. And, I just hope they don't screw it up.
I know. That was a question I was going to ask you. What do you think about this season? Do you think they are going to get a season in?
I think they'll play. I deep down, I believe that they'll play. Mm-hmm. I'm at the point right now, though, that I would not be surprised if it gets banged, whether it's health protocols or whether it's money or whatever. It's hard for me to fathom that 2 months ago you had two parties that were doing what was in the best interest of the game, the players and the owners coming together, and they come to an agreement on a deal. And then you're thinking, okay, maybe this is good leading into next year when they have the new collective bargaining agreement, negotiate that, goodwill. And all of a sudden, two and a half months later, we're at this stalemate. You know what I mean? That's the shame of it all. So I'd like to believe that we're going to get back to it. I know I want to get back to it because I'm not getting paid. I don't work. I don't get paid. I'm a freelancer. So
right.
Nobody wants games more than me.
Yeah, I can't imagine going a whole summer without a game of baseball to watch. But to be honest with you, this is going to be funny. I'm an Astros fan. I've been an Astros fan since 1980. So if there was a year that maybe they want to be canceled, it'd be this year because I knew what was going to happen when they went to the parks. But once things start up again, even if they do cancel the year, next year they're going to go in, and Yankee fans are still going to cause a riot when we come to town and all this stuff. So I don't know. I just want baseball to get back. I'll tell you, it's boring now. That sport's around.
Yeah, and I'm kind of getting a little tired of people saying, baseball needs to come back to heal the country and bring people together.
Right.
And like, if you told me if we were having this conversation and it was April 15th, I absolutely believe it because people were stuck at home, right? I think people today care more about their freaking jobs or their businesses and what's going to happen. I think that's at the forefront. Yeah, I'm unemployed, right? And if baseball wasn't my motivator as far as getting it back, I'd be sitting here going, I'm more concerned about getting a job and making ends meet and not losing my house than getting a chance to watch baseball on TV. I grew up in the game.
Yeah.
I think it's a nice distraction now.
Yep.
I think it'd be great. Oh, it's on. Okay. Right. I don't think everyone early on was talking about, it's kind of the September 11th effect. And that was a different thing. And it brought everybody together at that point, but everyone was galvanized at that point because of one thing, right? Terrorism. Right. This is a little different. This is a little different. And we're now so far removed from the stay-at-home quarantine to people wondering how they're going to live. What's going to happen? Not today, but a month from now, 6 months from now. And I think that's what's occupying people's minds. So I think it'll be more of a distraction as opposed to baseball's back. Let's all kumbaya. And
right.
The other guy. I think it'll help, but I don't think it's this glorious thing that everyone keeps wanting to make it out to be.
Right, absolutely. I got one more question for you. I'm going to get to my finale here. What do you think about Matt Chapman?
Heck of a player, man. Heck of a player. He's a guy that I love the way he plays the game because there's no, I'm not the old school, man yells at clouds type of personality that or get off my lawn that, there's the right way to play the game, wrong way. The showboating doesn't bother me anymore. It did at one point, but it's like everyone does it now. So it's like I'm kind of just used to it. Mm-hmm. And Matty's one of those guys that just is he's like steel-eyed, man. He's just he's got one job at all, and that's all he cares about. Mm-hmm. And I love that approach. I love the approach on the offensive side of things. And defensively, obviously, the glove speaks for itself. And what an arm that kid has. Yeah. No fear at all. And he is that Oakland A's team, man. If this baseball thing gets back going this year, next year, they got one heck of a nucleus as far as young players because Marcus Semion's come into his own. Matt Olson over at first base can pick it and can swing it too. Yep. They got some young arms that are coming back from injuries. especially serious injuries. So that's a pretty decent team.
Yeah.
Pretty scary coming out of the West.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, we're just finishing up here with Victor Ross, but we got one more thing for you, Victor. You are going to be entering the penalty box now. So, I'm gonna ring off 5 questions, and you're going to answer first thing that comes to your mind. All right. All right. Favorite meal?
Pizza.
Pizza.
Pizza and chicken parm. Pizza and chicken parm. It's a tie.
It's a tie. Is there a certain place you like what's your favorite pizzeria? If you had to pick up, is it the place in Chicago, the deep dish, or are you?
I tell you what, but the problem with deep dish, you can't eat a lot of it.
You can't.
There's a local place here that I kind of like, Marco's. For deep dish, I like Beggars. Yeah, and chicken parm. And it's tough to really screw up chicken parm. It really is.
It is. Right. All right. Favorite band or musician?
Man. All time?
All time.
It's got to be Boston.
Boston.
Yeah. I mean, I love Zeppelin. I love the Rolling Stones. Boston. I love Supertramp.
Oh, you too.
Boston's That's my go-to. Styx, REO. I mean, all those. That's right in my wheelhouse. I love all those bands.
Styx, I've seen about 3 times in the last 4 years here in New York. Man, they're awesome, and they still sound the same.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool.
All right, bucket list partner you'd like to do a game with. What would you like in that broadcast box?
Man, I've never really thought about it. I don't know, man. I got a really good broadcast partner right now, and it's fun to work with them. I guess if gloves off, wishful thinking thing. Hank Aaron.
Hammer and Hank, huh?
Yeah.
It'd be just great to sit and talk with him about
that's why I picked him, because I just admire, everything about him. I just think he's just this wonderful individual, and what he went through in his early life from poverty to greatest home run hitter of all time. And just the way he handles himself. I just think he'd be the perfect guy to just sit and talk a game with. Yeah,
that'd be cool. Favorite moment in your calling career? What game, what moment, broadcaster, would you say was your favorite moment?
Yeah, I've been lucky. Like I said, I've had some memorable calls. I still go back to Sosa's 600s, and I know the whole Sammy thing or whatever, but I just think because the first things first, I had his 599th. It was a grand slam in Cincinnati. And I told my broadcast partner the next day, Eric Nadel, I said, listen, man, I'm nobody. You've been doing this for, at that time, 28, 29 years with the Rangers. I said, every time Sammy, because I had the middle innings play-by-play. I said, if Sammy comes up in my innings and he hasn't hit number 600, I'd like to turn it over to you so you can have the call. And he said, absolutely not. He goes, whenever it happens, it happens. And it just turned out we were at home playing the Cubs. Jason Marquis was on the mound wearing Sammy's old number 21. So it was like it was all perfectly aligned, and he hit it out to the right center field. So that to me is like what I cherish the most. Alberts is great, the 500th, all that stuff. He hit 499 and 500 in the same game. 600 down the line. The 3,000 hit was just a flare to right, so it wasn't that dramatic. But Sammy's because of the story, and the backstory behind it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, last question. If you could sit down and have dinner with one person, let's say you get your chicken parm or that famous pizza from Marco's, and you could sit down with one person and just have a dinner with, whether they passed on, still alive, who would that person be and why?
I've always said that Lou Gehrig would have been a guy that I would love to have just talked to. Probably him or Babe Ruth. Now, I'm an old soul, so like I wish I would have been able to witness baseball in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Right.
I don't know. I connect to that era.
Right.
And so Babe, because of his personality, Lou, just because of the way, kind of like Hank Aaron, just the way he just did it, man. There was nothing about him. It was never about him. I don't know. I gravitate towards individuals like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I got to ask you this, Vic, did you ever come up to Cooperstown?
I was up there 2 years ago. because my son played up there.
Dreams Park.
It was the 13U thing.
Yep.
So he was at Dreams Park.
Yep.
And it was cool. It was a great experience. We took him to the museum. We stayed right there at the hotel where all the players stay. I forget the name of it. Right on the lake. Yeah. The Otesaga. We had a good time there, and it was fun. We spent about 4 or 5 days there, and had great weather.
Mm-hmm.
And
cool town.
I feel for the town. I feel for the town, man. It's,
this is a big one for them.
Heartbreaking.
Record-breaking year.
Yeah.
They had coming in. People reserve hotels for a year in advance, and now they got pushed everything into next year, which it's tough.
But even without the big year, just like nothing happening, you know what I mean? That's just the killer. You know, we were pretty close to so we have this family apparel business that we started in February of last year.
About that.
Yeah, no worries. It's called Big Fly Gear. And at one point towards the end of last summer, we were contemplating, I've always felt that, I'm not going to be a brick and mortar type of business, but if I was ever going to do one, Cooperstown would make sense because we're about telling stories of things that have happened in the past, from a baseball perspective. And what better place to have a store than Cooperstown, New York, that's all about the history of the game.
Yeah.
We were really close to pulling the trigger on it. We decided not to. And lo and behold, this happens. And, I just feel bad. I still think that I probably will go up there, and hopefully that storefront that we were looking at is still available because, I could walk outside the store on Main Street there.
Yep.
And if we had that store, the Hall of Fame would be across the street to my left.
Okay.
Across the street is Doubleday Field. I could see the parking lot, that entrance to Doubleday Field.
Yep.
I could see it right there. So that's where that store is at, and that's where we were thinking about going. So, maybe someday.
I think I know what spot you're talking about too. I go there at least 3 times a year. I'm about an hour and 15 minutes away from Cooperstown.
Yeah.
I just go and just walk the streets and
it's awesome.
And just talking with people. You see people with different jerseys and hats.
Yeah.
And you could just talk about anything in sports and baseball.
Very cool.
Really cool city.
And we did a lot of that because my son was at the dorms, right?
Yeah.
So my wife and I and my daughter would go and just grab a bite, and we just walk. Main Street's not very long, maybe a mile long. I don't know. And all you do is you just walk back and forth. You go inside of the store, but it's such a piece of Americana that, and again, being an old soul, it's like I didn't want to leave. Like it's Mayberry RFD, right? It's like I'm waiting for Opie Taylor to swing around the corner and Barney Fife with his one bullet, because that's the feeling that and the sense that you get there, and the people are so wonderful too.
Yeah, no, it's a great city. I love going there and hanging around. This year, it doesn't look like I'm gonna be getting up there at all, but I'm sure we'll make up for it next year. But if you ever come back to Cooperstown, if you ever come back to the area in Cooperstown and visit, definitely let me know, man. We'll take you to a great restaurant.
For sure.
And we'll get you some good upstate New York food that we got here in the town. And there's a couple great places in Cooperstown that we've filmed at before that we'll get you guys. We'll take you out to dinner.
Cool. Sounds good, man.
All right. That sounds awesome. Well, Victor, I want to thank you so much, man, for spending a little time with us on this Sunday afternoon.
You got it.
Or now, one question before we go. Where can people find your gear?
BigFlyGear.com.
Okay, so check out.
And right now we're actually having a clearance sale. We have some new stuff that's coming in. We're trying to get rid of some stuff. So T-shirts are as low as $15.
Beautiful. So if you guys are interested, check it out. I'm going to check it out. I may get me a shirt for the summer, and we'll do that. But I want to thank our sponsors real quick again. I want to thank Geddes Bakery in Syracuse and the Pappas family. Thank you so much for sponsoring today's show. And I want to thank Joey's at 307 in Utica, Matt Grabsky. Thank you so much. John Pappas said, great show today. Thanks, John, for watching. We appreciate it. And Victor, man, stay safe.
Thank you.
We can't wait to hear you back on. I got the MLB package. I've had it for about 15 years. So I listen to those late games after my Astros are over. And
cool.
In our division, I got to keep an eye on you guys
coming
up on us. So hopefully we'll get to see you again this year, back radio broadcasting the games and stuff. And if you ever come up this way, man, hit me up on Facebook.
Definitely.
We'd love to hang out with you for a little bit.
Definitely, man. You got it.
All right, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right, guys. Have a good day.
All right, buddy. You too.
All right.